Welcome to another episode of Fringe with me, your host, Joe Collins. So today we're joined by Mikkel Christensen. Today we're going to be talking about the rise of Danish youth Nazis. It's going to be some interesting conversation because Mikkel's done some investigations of his own into this. So that's why we're talking to him today. So, hi Mikkel, how are you doing?
Hi Joe, I'm good, man. Enjoying the summer.
Fantastic. So we'll kick it off today. Can you just provide an overview of like the rise of what I just called Danish youth Nazis? What am I on
Yeah,
about?
yeah. So thanks for having me first and foremost. Yeah, my name is Mikkel, and I did this project with Danish Data Paper Information about Danish youth Nazis moving around in like online forums, and spent like the better of a half a year like digging down to that and undiscussing that. And like if we talk about Danish youth Nazis, it's clear that they're like it's like your classic neo-Nazi online type of guy moving around in far-right forums, getting propaganda off the internet, sharing it with other members. And like the explicit forum that we followed was called Front and had like this clear like one point was it being like online and it was like an online forum and people knew each other online, but also some of them had like a wish of taking things to the physical world and like developing a formal organization in the physical world. So when we're talking about these Danish youth Nazis, they're both like your classic neo-Nazi far-right online persona, but they're also some eventually are willing to like take things to the physical world.
It's that kind of disturbing evolution that makes them so interesting, realistically, because obviously not every youth fascist group decides to kick it into the real world.
No, like and some of the youths also like just hanging around for fun, you know. Like me and you are probably both agreeing that this is not really fun sharing Prince and Tarrant videos and so on. But some of them are like seeing this as just jokes online and taking things to an edgy level and so on. So I think it's also worth noting that this ranges from like edgy teenagers online to like hardcore real life fascists.
Mm. So, how did this emerge? How does it kind of tie into Scandinavia's history with fascism?
I think if this, I don't think this particularly ties into like Scandinavian fascist history. Like there's some elements we can touch on later, maybe like with the Nordic resistance movement and so on. But I think like, this form that we follow, like this is like there wasn't been done any journalism on these far right online forums, but there has been done plenty of journalism done on like internationally about these forums. Like we had Iron March in the USA, and we have big forums in like Germany and UK and Norway and Sweden and so on. And they look exactly like Front looks like the phone we followed. Like they're identical almost. Like they work on Discord and Telegram and so on, and have like this online persona group going on, and like we're there for each other, but you know, online, but not in the physical world. So I think it more ties into like this like much wider scene we've seen on the far right scene of online forms emerging.
It has become a kind of global movement,
Yeah, it
the
really has, really
like
has.
modern Nazi.
Exactly. Like Iron March started in like 2013, I guess, and Atomwaffen just sprung out of that, and since then it's just been picking on, you know.
So, what are some of the similarities
To like what do you think it's
to
talking?
to some of the American
Yeah, yeah,
move?
yeah. So I mean, what was really interesting to me was that this film, it was very clear that they drew inspiration from Americans. Like a big part of how this film works was, and that was kind of like a bit baffling to me, is how visually it was. Like, of course, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of chats and messages going on, but there's thousands of videos going on. Also, like almost not almost, but really many videos and pictures and propaganda shared with each other. And it was clear to us that there was like an overload of Atomwaffen propaganda, for example, Atomwaffen division being this now defunct American neo-Nazi movement, like appealing for accelerationism and like the downfall of society. It was clear to us that there was an overload of Atomwaffen propaganda, for example. Um, And one of the guys that we followed and eventually tracked down, he called himself Entrance Online, and it was clear to us he was one of the ones appealing for like taking this to the physical world. And one of the things he like put focus on was that we need to get military uniforms. We need to dig up bunkers. We need to make shelters and hardware depots in the woods. And this is like uh, drawn from Atomwaffen like 1-to-1. You know, this is directly applied from like the aesthetics and the method of action. So both propaganda-wise, it's imported heavily from like the US, also with like active clubs and so on. But also like when they're then thinking about taking it to the physical world, they also find inspiration in Atomwaffen and likewise movements.
Hmm. So where do these young, I guess, men normally, where do they find each other?
It's funny you say men because like they're not really men. Those I mean those are kids. Like I mean we have to look at them in some way like they're men, but the ones we found and the ones we like eventually knocked on the doors at was like kids under 18 and some under 15. So I think that's like important to have like in mind. But your question was where do they find each other? Yeah, so it was clear to us and me after digging around in this for like many months that these kids like know each other from all sort of places on the internet over the years. Like these were not just some kids randomly finding each other one day and now we're gonna create this Nazi movement. These were kids that have been in far right forums for many years. Some of them eventually like comes on to pick up on it from TikTok propaganda and so on. I can get back to that how that works. But like the many of the core members was like people that had known each other, some from real life, some from school, some from other forums. But a way that Fatherlandsfront like recruited members was both through TikTok but also Instagram. TikTok, they had like a TikTok profile that was open that had a Discord link on it, and then boom, click it, you're in. And the same with Instagram, pretty much. And what is also really interesting is that the Instagram site is like it's like a collection of like Danish images from old days, like romantic era type images of beautiful women in you know, on the fields picking like being on the field and just, you know, classic romantical images. But if you look in the biography, there's like a small link to a Telegram group, and boom, click it, you're in. So what looks like just traditional values and so on, and just a pretty much innocent side turns into a Nazi form real quick. So they both know each other from like I don't know if you can say old days, but the internet in like a general broad term, and they know each other from real life also.
Mm. It's so wild to me how much of a catalyst social media has been for these groups.
Yeah.
It's really just made it so much easier to take it that step further. Almost.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I think it's worth noting, like one of the methods we used in this to like gain access to this form at all was that we created a TikTok account called Based88, and if you just in spelled in Danish, and if you're familiar with like far right lingo online, you know that Based88 is like this is cool, I'm a Nazi. 88 for Heil Hitler, obviously. And what was really interesting about this TikTok account was that I just called it Based88, wrote I'm 19, I go to the gym. I think I wrote I'm an eco-fascist and like appreciate traditional values. And then I followed like 15, 20 far-right accounts. And in the span of 3 months, I had 1,000 followers on that account. 1,000 followers. That just says something about how the algorithm and especially like TikTok's AI algorithm works in just crazy baffling ways. And those 1,000 followers, you know, they weren't like regular school kids. They were all far-right guys from all over Europe, really. So yeah, it's baffling how that works.
It almost streamlines people into the right places.
Yeah,
Terrifying.
definitely. Mm.
And with your research, I think one of the most interesting parts about it was kind of who it came out to be. Some of these people, they were quite important, or they were the children of quite important people. Some of them, weren't they?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, one of the like the leader of the forum, I'm gonna be on a on a note of how much I can say about it. But the leader of the forum was like it wouldn't take many Google searches if you knew his name to find out who he was and what he has been doing before. You can say, and so, yeah, uh, public name. Yeah,
Hmm. Again, it makes it's and just another kind of layer of intrigue
definitely.
to the whole story.
Both me and Ida, who I did the project with from Danish daily paper information, when we found out that, just looked at each other and like, what the fuck is going on? Like my mom who knew what this was, kind of. So yeah.
Did you face any trouble afterwards?
Yeah, yeah, we did. Also gonna be moving on a line on how much I can really get into this, but yeah, it's not like a month and a half ago, the police called me and told me to stay indoors for like the next couple of hours. I think that's what I can say about that, and then you can lay into it whatever you want, kind of. Yeah,
Very fair.
yeah,
So earlier on, we kind of touched on the Nordic resistance movement.
yeah.
How do the two tie in together?
Um, So a thing that we found out in our research was that the Nordic resistance movement actually have had Discord servers for a long time now. They stopped making Discord servers and moved to Telegram in 2021. But from 2018 to like 2021, they had a Discord server, and they had multiple Discord servers that often got banned. But it was clear to us after months of research that some of these individuals knew each other from the Nordic resistance movement Discord. And like a lot of the members don't really move around online a lot more. Also, the Nordic resistance movement have died a bit down in the last couple of years, but there's still some people like hanging around. And in Fatherland's Front, like the forum we followed, where like the average age was like 16, I guess. There were individuals of Nordic resistance movement hanging around, and especially like the editor of Nordfront.dk, the Danish side of the Nordic resistance movement, the editor of their website was hanging a lot around in these forums. And what was really interesting was like they were actually recruiting. They were sometimes posting a link like, if you're interested in taking things to the next level, you can click this link and go online. But also, what was interesting was that a member of Fatherland's Front, who we called Sophie in our article, she's a minor. I can't say her age, but she was under 15. She eventually got a link to the Nordic resistance movement and was told that you can join the site if you want to take things to the next level. And she clicked the link and she wrote in the chat like, "Why do I have to write my address? Like that's a bit scary and so on." And this guy from the Nordic resistance movement quickly came with a nice and beautiful written answer. When we do social gatherings and so on, and we meet each other and do real nice things in real life, we need to know your address so we know where to hang out and such. And just like spoken in such a low key, day-to-day manner, like
It's absolutely terrifying.
yeah, and like one of the most like hardcore members we were keeping an eye on, we called him Gustav in our article. He was a 15-year-old kid living in Denmark, and we were up like we confronted like four of these members and their parents to ask them what they think about what the kids are doing online. And we were up visiting Gustav in in Denmark. Of course, can't disclose where, but we were visiting him, and we were like asking him about like, so what do you think about all this shit? And we asked, you say that you want to join the Nordic resistance movement when you're 16. Why is that? And mind you, he was sitting next to his mother. So he said, well, I think that the only one that can fix the problems. And she asked, the only one? Yeah, the only one. Like stone cold face. Like, so he was obviously like radicalized, believing that these real life neo-Nazi hardcore guys was like the way to go.
The Modern Insurgent is completely independent. If you want to support our work and help boost independent journalism, please consider supporting us via Patreon at patreon.com/moderninsurgent. Thank you very much. So, what are some of the key challenges faced by the authorities in kind of dealing with this?
Yeah. So I think that has stood clear to us after publishing the articles because we got a lot of positive backlash from authorities and also been giving speeches to the police and such, and people actually working with de-radicalization. A thing that became very clear to us, both after talking to them during the research, but also visiting these kids, are that I hadn't imagined that some of the kids I would be visiting was like loud and noisy, smoking cigarettes on the corner or something like that. Not just, I mean, it's not that shocking after all, but I would imagine that at least some of them would have been a bit more noisy, but they aren't. Like they are just shy kids in their mother's basements, typing away on the internet and not making much noise in real life. So I mean, like teachers and parents and authorities have a huge task in finding these kids because they don't make like how would you discover they're on the fucking computer on Discord like any other 15-year-old kid. The difference is they're playing Fortnite and these guys are sharing Atomwaffen propaganda, so what authorities have to do, like I don't know like specifically, but I just know that this is a huge task, and just keeping an eye on them and knowing who they are is like a challenge in itself. But also, like some of the experts we talk to who do speeches on this regularly obviously mentions things like be aware if your child starts to talk about Andrew Tate or like really fantasize these far right individuals and so on. Yeah. So yeah, what to do specifically is a big challenge, and I think that most countries all over Europe has this challenge. And yeah, you're gonna have to ask an expert to get a more concrete answer.
Did any of the people you confronted, did any of their parents share any similar beliefs, or did it
Uh,
all exist in isolation?
yeah. It's a really good question because you would think that at some of these homes you would at least been greeted by like some traditional values or like some conservative values or something like that. But there really wasn't. These were really regular homes with well educated parents, good homes. It looked like nothing on the obvious turning out. So the short answer is no. But what was really interesting was that multiple of these kids online were like giving expression for that. I come from a home of like my dad was a Nazi or something like that. It just turned out like your dad is a hippie, bro. So, so yeah.
There's definitely like a cosplay like
Mm,
aspect to it all.
mm.
It seems quite like idealistic in a way.
Yeah. It really does. Like, I think like I think many of these kids, they shop around in ideologies for like a couple of years, and they jump out of that like internet ideology scene. Like we kept an eye on some of the individuals in the month coming, and in the span of 2 months, some of them were like, "Oh, I'm not a Nazi anymore. Now I'm just a conservative." So it's all really in the head, and not something that it's like fig in shape like a real ideology. It shops around very often. Yeah.
It's fascinating. So, what kind of public response did you get from your investigation?
So yeah, Ida, I did the story where she was one of the only journalists in Denmark who like had done pieces on like the far right scene before. So that's also why I contacted her and pitched this project to her. And she's been, mind you, a journalist for I guess 15 years now or something. And like she haven't seen this big of a response to a story she did before. She told me like she was also very overwhelmed by it. So like it was a big story and got really far out, and like it was also on the biggest news podcast in Denmark to talk about it and so on. So that has obviously like for your own ego wouldn't have been great, but we also got like contacted by police to like come out and do speeches for them, and for anti-radicalization folks to do speeches for them, to tell them about what we found, and like to tell you the same things I'm telling you now, and just letting them know how we see this and what we found in our research and who these kids were. Um, and when we did one of those presentations, I was almost like overwhelmed afterwards because it was just guy after woman coming out to us and being like, "Thank you so much for doing this, man. So we really needed this. We really needed someone to find out what was happening because we all seen it, but we didn't know what it was." So the response from like experts and people who actually deal with this has been overwhelming, and we could also tell that it's been really important. So yeah, both experts have been very happy to have it. It's also clear that it's something like the public in some way has wanted to have. Like it was taking people was really fond of it, and got really far out. Also, in the meantime of releasing the story, there was like the first case of like a far right youth being arrested and trialed for terrorist activities, and then like a 16-year-old kid who joined the Feuerkrieg division, a subgroup of Atomwaffen. So it was just in a blast of far rights on the news and the story coming out. So it's like a perfect storm, I guess, for it to get the attention it really deserved. Yeah.
It's fantastic the reaction that it did get because it's well deserved because it's incredible work.
Thank you.
How does the presence of the far right impact the broader Danish society, do you think?
So like a thing that was kind of a thing these you've talked to was like they wanted to push the Overton window, and the Overton window is like this applying like extremist talking points to the public space, so you can move like the normal perception of what normal is. And it was clear they talked about this obviously that a point of like the Faderlands Front was to move the Overton window, so like some of these extremist narrative was more acceptable in the public. And it's just clear that when it moves from like being 100 kids online to like being 300 Nazis on the street with the Nordic resistance movement, when it goes to being 1,000 members of like a hardline, which is a far right Danish party, um, you know, actually, I'm gonna have to be a journalist and be objective on this in some way or another. But I just know, I think all the science says that the more these forms and the more these talking points pop up, the more normalized they are, and the more they find their way into public speeches now. Like we have a board debate going on in Denmark now. We didn't have that a few years ago, and if you ask me, that's just directly imported from like American talking points because no one is giving a fuck about abortion in Denmark. It's not. We got good regulation on it and so on. So yeah, I don't know what impact is to broader society. I guess like what I would be worried about is like these Andrew Tate figures popping up, be on the lookout for kids like really looking up to these figures. Yeah.
Do you think the trajectory is only going to go down? Do you think there's a bigger chance for violence in the future and it just getting worse?
You're thinking of like the far right team?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the Fatherlands Front is like coming with a few years of delay, you could say. Like it has been a thing in like most other Western countries for years, these far right communities. So it's coming a bit delayed. But what we're seeing now on the far right scene is these active clubs popping up more and more, which are like fitness freaks and fighting freaks coming together to like beat up people on the street. And I've been seeing like the first seeds of that in some of these forums, and I've been seeing like the first seeds of people like going together to meet, to train and work out and fight. We also see it with another far right group, Generation Identity, which has a much more broader acceptance in society, coming together to fight and train. So I think that if something that I would be on the lookout for that, especially like these active clubs and this normalization and both practice and of violence. I think that's having focus on your physical fitness and your body and like this Sigma status. I think that is becoming more and more clear. Yeah.
In your opinion, what steps should be taken to kind of counter this influence of the far right?
So we talked to a lot of experts and specialists in this topic during our research, both to a few national experts, but also to international recognized professors in de-radicalization. And I think the most clear-cut answer these people gave to us is that it doesn't start with like shouting at your kids and telling them that you're wrong and you can't be a Nazi. The thing is starting to ask your kids what is going on, actually. So like, what are you doing online? Who are you talking to and who are you influenced by? So I think it's seeing these kids not as, of course, there's views to this, but I don't think it's always seeing a kid as like hardcore radicalized and on the verge to commit a terror attack. I think it's also like seeing a kid going through like maybe an edgy state, maybe just a few years of hanging too much on the internet, watching dumb shit. But also, I think like there's a huge gap here between parents and kids, because what was obvious to us was that these parents had no fucking clue what was going on with the kids. You know, they didn't know what Discord was, and let alone what Telegram was, and what the encrypted chat was. But like, so I think like both, of course, authorities have their way of dealing with this, but I think like parents just digitally educating themselves and what the fuck is going on online and what are these social media. I think that really has a big role to play, because I did this also by myself when I was 15, just sitting on my computer unfiltered watching shit, and I think a lot of kids do that. The problem is some of these kids end up in fucking far right forums. So if you're a parent, you fucking ask about your children, ask what they're doing online, I think, and just know your way around online life. There's no reason for a parent at 15 years to not know what the fuck Telegram is. Honestly, yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of people kind of our age speak about the internet when they were younger and how they saw a cartel beheading, and
Yeah.
specifically remembering that. I think parents
Yeah.
need to realize that now it's different. It's your kid can end up a Nazi by 20 minutes on Discord if it
Exactly. And like this, the story hadn't been pieced together if it wasn't for TikTok again. Like I just discovered one of these profiles on TikTok, suddenly randomly browsing through stupid videos one day. And then someday I was like, this shit is anti-Semitic and this is a Danish guy. So it just started there. So just be on the fucking lookout for what is going on online. I think it's, similar to that.
Mm. I even the research I do right now, one of the podcast episodes, I was looking for Slavic history, trying to find an Instagram account. All I found was Nazis.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it really is everywhere, even if you don't know where to look.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, Instagram has your cookies now. They know that you looked at Nazi once, now they're gonna probably recommend it to you in like a few days or something, and you're gonna scroll right past it, or and maybe not. And if you don't, like, that's gonna go 2 days more, and then we can more Nazi stuff. Yeah.
And that's fully how it happens. And say if that happens to say a 14-year-old instead of someone that kind of understands what's going on, it's a dangerous game.
Yeah, and me and you both are adult people. Like we got that filter to know that we're looking at white supremacists videos right now, but a 14-year-old don't fucking know what is going on. And I think it's also like worth mentioning here at the end that a lot of the experts we talked to mentioned that looking at especially those like Brenton Tarrant videos and so on normalize violence, and it also does something to a child's brain to look at this shit. And me and Ida both, like, when we watched those videos at first, we were like, oh, fuck, I don't want to watch this, But, like, 10 minutes later, 10 minutes later, we were like, this is, whatever. I've seen this plenty of times now. And imagine if you look at that shit over the course of 2 years, man, what it does to your brain. So,
yeah. I was talking with a friend just yesterday, and we were saying about how it's even just like the Instagram OSINT accounts. I see people die every day.
Yeah.
Which is it's a mad thing to even think about every single day.
Exactly. And you can't undermine that it does something to your brain in some way or another. That I don't know if it decreases empathy or if it just makes you don't care about people dying, but it does something to your brain that is probably not that good. But hey, this is the things we're doing. So
2023.
Yeah.
So, kind of a final question.
Yep.
What are the long-term implications if this grows unchecked?
Yeah, I mean, like we saw what happened with like Iron March was this primarily American forum where far-right extremists got together at first online in like this modern-day meme-ish internet culture communities. And we saw what happened with Iron March. It just span out of complete control and like made the foundation of like Atomwaffen, which went on to commit terrorist attacks, and killing multiple people. And what's also clear to us that some of those youths, and especially like Gustav, he was hardcore about, like, he wanted to commit violence. Like he wrote a specific message like, give me $200 and I'll kill you. And 2 minutes later posted a picture of a knife. So I mean, and just Fatherless Front went on for like 2 months before it was shut down by Discord. Imagine what happens if this went on for a year and they just just spout each other up, and it's like a spiral down effect. Like one guy tells the other guy to arouse, and the other guy arouses from that, and then yeah, it just goes on and on. So I mean, the longer time this goes on, the longer it like has the ability to like develop into something more than just a few kids online chatting shit to each other. The more it like develops into having that physical dimension, the more dangerous it just gets. Like as one of the experts told us, like a few kids meeting online, maybe what it is, but we only need one guy with a weapon before we got a serious issue. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, it also makes me think that the content moderation teams at Discord and Telegram are God's strongest soldiers.
I mean, like Discord took 2 months to ban Valorant Front. I don't know if 2 months is a long time or not, but I mean, a lot of shit happened in 2 months, that's for sure. Like a lot of shit really accelerated in those 2 months, and Valorant Front really took many turns in those 2 months, both online but also physically. So I mean, I don't know if Discord should be fast on this. They probably should, but I also just know that probably I mean, Telegram is like owned by two Russian guys and located in Dubai. Like, it's not like Western governments are gonna have any good time like persuading them into like giving up shit on their users. So I mean, and you can shut it down from like the EU side and like from Brazil and so on, but give it like 2 days and you got another encrypted, safe platform to use. So I don't know what the fuck these governments are gonna do about this, man. I'm happy I'm only a journalist. I don't have to deal with this.
Okay, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, for real, for real.
So, is there anything you're going to investigate next? Do you have any other ideas?
I mean, this has been really fun doing. Also, I've been like only a journalism student at my first semester while doing this. And also from 1st of August, I'm gonna intern at Danish Daily Paper Information as a journalist for a year. So I'm really happy about that. But me and Ida both look at each other after 3 months of investigating this, and for me personally, a few months longer. Like, we need a fucking break from this now. So I don't want to be in any Telegram groups anymore, bro. So, like, I mean, I go into a Nazi Telegram once, and I just can't do this again. So I'm really happy to like start this internship and just like write regular news and something that is not online, and let me fucking write about tractors or fields and regulations and shit like that. Like, I need a break from this. But yeah, we're definitely keeping a lookout for what is going on, and also just sometimes like looking in what is going on. How are you guys going out again? But yeah, we'll see in the future. Maybe something more to come.
Fantastic. And if any of our listeners want to find you on social media, where can they do that?
I'm on Twitter at MNH Christensen. I think it's easier if you leave a link to it in the bio. It's a Danish surname, so I'm not gonna try and spell that out, but MNH Christensen, yeah, on Twitter. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure to have you on today. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thank you, Joe. Talk to you later. Bye.